All right, we are live. Welcome to our MC4326 Advanced Social Media and Analytics class. This Wednesday morning, I have group 2 with us, and I am so happy to be here today with all of them. Give them a round of applause if you're just joining in that chat. We also have Angie, who is our wonderful graduate assistant. Say hello to us, Angie.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in. I'm very, very excited to see what Group 2 has to show us today. And again, I hope you guys enjoy.
So honestly, who's a bit nervous? You a bit nervous? Yeah. So this is normal, and we're just gonna give you a minute to sit with that and then let it go, because we're gonna have a really good talk show today. And I think that your team has been working so hard on this. It's gonna be really, really fun. I hear we have some potential pets that might make debuts, which I think would make this even more interesting for us. Just a reminder, for all of us, that we are doing these social media shows every Wednesday, 9:30 in the morning. And today we're going to be talking about the age of influence and influencer cultures. I'm really excited for that. And I'm just going to quickly chat maybe a little bit while we have people joining us about some of the concepts that we hit on Monday, because I think these are going to lend themselves really nicely to the kind of conversation that this team is going to bring forward with the kind of subject matter that's going to come up. So we talked a lot about what are the qualities of influence, how have the tenets of influence changed as we've seen technological evolutions. We talked about some of the problems with the original two-step flow or hypodermic needle model. And we started to talk a lot about authenticity and parasociality in terms of these sort of concepts that often connect to influencer cultures. Today, you're going to hear your team. If you go to the Canvas page, you'll see these articles, but they're going to be talking about 2 articles this week in particular: Influencer Creep by Sophie Bishop, which they'll introduce again later, Ambassadors of Ideology, and this is by Sophia Rohat and so forth, on far-right influencers. There was obviously a bunch of articles that you were able to choose from, so I'm excited to see why you chose these ones and how you're going to ground them in today's show. I'm trying to give people time to join our live feeds. Angie, can you do a quick check to make sure we're live across all platforms? I want you to know that I always get really, really excited for these shows. And I get particularly excited when we're doing something a little bit different. And today we are. So we are live streaming across LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch today. But for the first time ever, I've asked my class to go onto Twitch. And so they're going to be joining us from the live stream on the Twitch platform. And it's going to be really interesting. The same audience participation requirements as before, but I do want you to pay particular attention to how the dynamics of the audience and other people are showing up in the comments. Look at that. We finally have people starting to show up. Yeah, please put a comment in so I know that you're there. We're just about to start the show. So yeah, good luck to group 2. We're very excited for you. Any final words before we send this group off, Angie?
I would say, first of all, good luck. Be confident, be comfortable, be calm. You guys have this in the bag. You've practiced, you know your stuff. So I guess just have a good time and let what happens happen.
Woohoo! Take it away, Team 2.
Hey guys, welcome to the live. We're all so happy that y'all are here. We are going to be covering a couple topics such as influencer and influencer laws, how artists navigate social media, and recent breaking news on social media. Again, if y'all have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll try to get to as much as we can. But the first question I want to ask is, has anyone gone viral on social or on any social media platform? Don't worry, we won't judge. So go ahead, take it away if y'all have.
Me and Kylie both have an experience, but like 2 years ago, I think already, I have a job over the summer at a water park, and we started making content for TikTok, and I was the face of the TikTok page for a little while. They would do like mic'd up lifeguards. Like as I'm working, they had me mic'd up to hear what conversations I was having, and we gained a lot of traction through that. So I had a lot of people know who I was.
That's so fun. And who thought we're gonna go post this on TikTok? Like, how did that happen?
I mean, I'll be honest. When our camera guy came to me with the idea, I was like, okay, sure. Who's gonna see this? And then like we were getting millions of views, and I was like, okay, great.
So I also had my own little viral moment about 4 years ago. In high school, I ran track and I did hurdles. And my junior year of high school, I tripped over a hurdle and had a really bad fall. And the video was really funny. And so after I kind of got over it, I posted it to like a viral sound on TikTok and didn't think anything of it. But I fell asleep and woke up the next morning to 6 million views on it, which was kind of embarrassing. The US track and field TikTok account commented on it. And then I eventually got posted on the Overtime Instagram. So I
I
honestly,
didn't realize there was 6 million, Kylie. That's wild.
a little
So
bit
you're the
embarrassing,
girl.
but it's like a fun little like fun fact about me now. So I like bringing it up.
Absolutely, you should.
And now Kate is going to be talking about the story news. So go ahead.
Alrighty. So, in terms of social media, I think one of the bigger stories, especially affecting our generation, is the controversy around the TikTok ban in the United States. Obviously, in recent years, TikTok, has been at the center of political tensions. A lot of politicians believe that, ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, is selling our data to the Chinese government, and U.S. lawmakers really have not liked that very much, and they really believe that that is happening. So obviously, in January, TikTok did actually get banned for a very short period of time. And obviously, that affected a lot of creators as well as the TikTok Creator Fund, which is how a lot of creators, it's their main source of income, to be honest. So recently, obviously the revival of TikTok was not permanent, so it is still under political and legal procedure. As of recently, the status of TikTok in the United States still remains pretty much uncertain. Once again, due to the ByteDance security, the company that owns it. But obviously, lawmakers, mostly Republican lawmakers, still really do not like TikTok, and they really do want it banned. So by April 5th, I believe is the date it's been extended to, which we still really don't know much about the status on whether or not it's actually going to get banned. However, President Trump does really like TikTok, and he believes that a lot of his political gain before the election was due to TikTok. So yeah, the April 5th deadline is approaching, and it still remains in balance depending on what happens in the legislative actions on it. And that's pretty much all I have for TikTok. But
I'm curious what your team thinks about this impact specifically on influencers or content creators. Is a ban good? Is a ban bad? How about the reception since it? Are content creators being silenced in any way? So there's a particular kinds of content they can no longer post. Like, what are the ramifications of all of this sort of geopolitical discussion around a possible or impending and has happened TikTok ban?
So yeah, obviously, probably the biggest thing for creators is the fund, which has been essentially cut a little bit almost because of the ban. And I know that specific creators are still the TikTok Creator Fund is still it's about 80% of what it was, as from what I've heard. So that is a lot of people's livelihoods, and that is a lot of people's content creators' main source of income. So that's really the big thing for content creators on TikTok as of right now.
I think it made them like
have a realization that this is not something that's permanent for them. And social media is constantly changing. And I think it like kind of shocked a lot of influencers realizing that their main source of income is on TikTok and that could be taken away at any moment. So I think it honestly made them have to like expand their community to like Instagram or somewhere else, but then also realize that this is not something that is permanent or forever. Like it could really just be taken away from them at any moment.
I also think like content wise, I haven't really experienced it, but I know people that have after the ban ended and we got TikTok back. People were saying that their For You pages were different, and some content creators were even saying they would post certain videos talking about something political or such as like banned books, and like their videos were getting taken down or they weren't getting as much attention as they used to. So whatever happened in that small amount of time that we didn't have the app, people are saying they changed the algorithm to where you can't say certain things. So some people's videos might be getting taken down and that could affect them as well, I think.
I think a lot of people were alluding to this last week in the comments. They were saying like the algorithm is whack, the algorithm's not working. Comment in the chat right now if you've noticed any algorithmic changes on TikTok, if you are observing anything in particular that you can share your insights on. I wanted to bring Angie up to the stage to see what you think about all of this, Angie.
Honestly, like the TikTok ban was a very, very informative time for everyone, not just for content creators, but it was also very interesting to see the reaction. I think you guys might have seen on the news or anything, like people were selling, if you had deleted the app on your phone and you couldn't get it back from the Play Store, people were selling phones that had the app on it. That was absolutely
thousands
insane.
of dollars. Thousands. I was like, I have a few old iPhones with TikTok. Thousands of of dollars. Sorry, I'm reading this.
No, absolutely. It just goes to show like how much of an impact and how much of a giant thing TikTok was. And then apparently if you block Meta and Facebook on TikTok, it'll switch your algorithm. Wow. That's interesting. But I think it also has something to do with the fact that it was banned for the United States, not for other countries. So one of the things that I saw when I came back were like screenshots and stuff of like, wow, like I feel like it's so empty in here. People making jokes. Like we can talk in kilometers now. And I think I'm wondering, just curious, if maybe the absence of such a large demographic might have inherently changed the algorithm a bit to cater to like more broad audiences. But I just wanted to acknowledge this comment here. I've noticed that the For You page on TikTok has started to show content with low engagement too. That's actually something that I think we mentioned last week, that we not only observed on TikTok, but also Instagram and YouTube, that lots of old videos are now starting to get resurfaced and that people will be recommended videos from like 5 years ago. So again, I think it's very interesting to see why the algorithm is behaving the way it is and what that could possibly mean for future engagement. So I guess I'll pitch a question here. What was one of the most surprising things that you learned or that you endured during the TikTok ban?
Don't all jump in. Who doesn't use TikTok?
Well, I was gonna say that like the immediate change of Instagram's layout. So within like the same day that TikTok was gonna get banned, Instagram's like homepage and like feed turned into like very rectangular video instead of like that horizontal that it used to be. And so I remember like going onto Instagram that night and seeing like my profile look different and I didn't like it. And then I realized that they did it because it was like to accommodate the ban of the TikTok. And then for it to come back within like 18 hours, it was like crazy to me. And it was like how Instagram was trying to accommodate for that. And I saw a lot of people on TikTok saying, like, oh, follow me here. I'm gonna do the same content on here. And I just found it really interesting that although like the influencers didn't have their main platform, they were still trying to find ways to reach their audience in any way that they could.
I definitely agree. Like it was kind of like stocking up for the apocalypse. People were like, okay, guys, before the ban, I'm going to be here. Everyone start moving over here. Instagram was like, okay, I got to start stocking up for the new influx of people who are going to be coming in. And one of the things that I was personally on the lookout for is that I feel like different, well, I feel it, and I believe it's true that different platforms have different cultures, right? So maybe like a comment that you would put on YouTube won't do well on TikTok, right? Or maybe a comment that you put on Pinterest is not the same comment that you would write on Instagram. And so I was very, very surprised. And I did notice this. I'm not sure if anyone else has. When people started moving from TikTok over to Instagram, I feel like a lot of the comments were maybe a little bit more critical. And I feel like people were pointing it out in the comments as well. Like, oh, here come the TikTok users. And so I was wondering if you guys believe that there's different cultures and different platforms as well.
I definitely think that Instagram is a completely different culture from TikTok. Like I noticed that people are a lot meaner on Instagram, especially in the comment section. Like they're very judgmental and they're not scared to like say it. And then also I think that Instagram, like people aren't as, it's not as like seen as cringy to make Instagram reels. And so I see a lot more people who don't have like a lot of followers just making Instagram reels just for fun or just about something that like they think is funny or something. But yeah, it seems that on TikTok, when you post your videos, it's kind of like coming or going out to your community. As to on Instagram, it's kind of just going wherever. And so you might find those hate comments pretty quickly because it's not being pushed to your community, it's being pushed to just everyone.
So like since there's different I'm so sorry. I'll just real quick and then I'll cut to you, Savannah. I was just wondering that since there's different cultures and different platforms, you said Instagram is a little bit meaner. I think that the merge because of the TikTok ban could have only been short term because of how different those two behaviors are. Do you think that, I guess, an influencer on one platform would have made it to the same extent on the other? And do you think that that merge could have possibly have endured long term, or do you think it would have turned into something else?
I don't think that Instagram would have become what TikTok was. Like, I think that's where every influencer was thinking they were going to go, but I don't think long term that it could have turned into what TikTok is because they're so similar, but they're very different in certain ways. Like how TikTok is just videos or like just lives, and Instagram started out as somewhere where people like share with their friends, kind of like Facebook, and TikTok is more like you're trying to go viral or you're trying to build this community. So I don't really think that Instagram could have been the solution for TikTok being banned.
I noticed that Geraldo put up this comment. It did change the way that people could talk to people on TikTok. And I want you to elaborate on that because I'm curious about it. But it also makes me think about how platforms rather intentionally but looking unintentional structure the vernacular cultures on these platforms, much like what Angie is discussing. And one of the things that we know is that platforms often, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they often position themselves as apolitical actors in this moment, but actually the infrastructures that support them really determine how audiences comment and how people are able to post, comment, react. And so exactly what Kylie was just suggesting, that there's a different culture in the comments, that is often infrastructural. And so I just want you to be aware of that. I'm curious also about this. Someone said, I don't use TikTok, so the only thing I really noticed is that it was gone from the App Store. I think this really speaks to the power of the App Store. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not even just the power of the platforms themselves, but the ability for someone to curate what is in that Apple App Store, what is in that Android App Store. What do you think about that and the role of app stores in playing as a form of gatekeeper to these sort of larger influencer structures? That's a question for your team.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot in our class about how like TikTok has platform politics, economics, and power. But what is the power of the App Store? For example, the Apple app store in being able to gatekeep what is allowed and not allowed in those spaces. What's going on there, and what do you think about that?
So I noticed this especially like because of the TikTok ban. Anyone who already had it downloaded obviously got to keep it. But I mean, we saw this like way back when with Flappy Bird, like it got taken off the App Store and you could keep it on your phone, but the longer you had it, it wasn't getting updated. So it started like bugging out and eventually like it wasn't available to play anymore. So if TikTok is taken off the App Store, it's not available to get updates. And so eventually, I mean, I think it's back on the App Store now, for now. But if it wasn't, it would start to like slow down, not work as well. And then eventually we would still lose it no matter what if the ban was there. I noticed because I kept TikTok downloaded when it was banned. But then I got a new phone. And so I did do the like VPN trick where I like set my VPN to Canada and like turned my Wi-Fi off and downloaded it and it actually worked. So I had TikTok again, but that just, I think that shows how like important the App Store is. Like I literally had to pretend to be in a different country to download an app that was banned in the United States.
That's fascinating that they even let you do that, because usually the App Store has your it's harder to trick with a VPN. So that's fascinating. Anyone else? What do you think about the power of an App Store?
I don't usually like look at the App Store all that much. But the few times that I have, like depending on what I've downloaded most recently. So like if like at one point I had like a lot of games on my phone. So every time I would open the App Store, it was games that were surrounding the games that I had already downloaded. So I feel like if it sees certain things that you are downloading, it'll recommend other things that are like that. But like other than that, I'm not sure. But I think it's really good at recommending things that you are interested in, because obviously you keep downloading some of the same things. So it's going to keep recommending those same things to you.
Do you remember at the beginning of the semester how we started to talk about the Netflix catalog as being this like non-infinite resource, right? Like it's this curated space that comes up against the edges of itself when you can no longer search the content because there's nothing more there to search, right? Like it feels like there's an infinite amount, but really it is curated by the company itself. I think in many ways we should be thinking about app stores in a very similar kind of way, where there are these political, economic, and social and cultural construction systems, and they really do play into these influencer cultures. But I do want to recognize that we've been doing this this little chat for a while, so we may want to start moving on to whoever's next. So feel free to do those transitions.
Yeah, so I believe next is Whitney, if I'm not mistaken, on the articles.
Yes, so I'm going to be talking about the article Influencer Creep by Sophie Bishop. But before I get into that, I kind of want to ask the team and like other people if they have noticed any specific ways that their favorite influencers use their platforms to like actually influence us. Like, do they have a specific way they edit their videos, or do they upload all the time? Like, for example, if you see a Mr. Beast video, you know it's going to be a Mr. Beast video by the cover picture, because he has a specific way he edits and a specific way he posts his content. So that's just a question for everybody. But what I want to talk about with this article is Sophie Bishop goes into how artists navigate social media, which obviously I said artists, not influencer, but the way that these artists navigate social media is kind of the same ways that influencers do. And they kind of like take what the influencers do and they turn it into a way that they're able to use it for their content. So the norms and practices that the influencers have established made its way into the art world. And what those practices are is self-branding, optimization, and authentic self, which we've talked about being authentic in class. But what I want to talk about first is self-branding, which is including yourself in promotional content. And in this article, Sophie Bishop I believe she talked to about 25 artists. I can't exactly remember, but there were 25 artists, I believe. And She interviewed each of them, and I believe each interview she did, they were about like an hour-long interview. And she found that each participant that she interviewed engages in some sort of self-branding. And the artists that she used to be her participants are all artists. Their art or their work, it surrounds like ceramics, illustration, or like metalwork and textiles, not really like little crafty things or anything. It's kind of like extensive work that they have to put significant time into. So each of the participants sells and produces products to people, and they make money from it while they also maintain a good social media presence. And what these participants noticed is that whenever they included their self more in posts, they would get more engagement, because it's not just showing their work. A lot of people want to know who's behind the work. They want to see who made it, and things like that. And what they really noticed is they received more positive reactions whenever they were talking emotionally or having emotional conversations, specifically if they were speaking on anxiety or grief or unemployment. And I feel that reason is because it lets their viewers know that they're just like them. Like, they go through the same hardships that we do any other day. And I feel like that's why they get such a positive reaction, because whoever's viewing their post, if they've gone through something like that, they have something to connect with that person with. I forgot what I was going to say. So I feel like that's one good connection, because I know most of the people that I follow, they always have something about their personality that aligns with my personality, or they have views that I agree with, or something like that. So I feel like that goes to the same for everybody else. And with the self-branding, it kind of grows into sort of like a micro celebrity type of situation, because they could be such a small artist. Like, for example, I follow this one girl, and she, like, one of her videos like blew up because she was doing she was going through sorority rush out of college, and it was only one video that really blew up. Now her videos don't really get a lot of attention, but she still posts as if she was an influencer already. So like the way she edits her videos seem like she is an influencer, and she posts them even though no one's watching her, because she wants to, I guess she wants to already be ready for that whenever, if she does become like an influencer, she's there for that. She's already ready for it, if that makes sense. The next one is optimization, which these influencers and artists figure out how to navigate social media with an expertise about it. So like, and what's difficult about that is not everything is like a straight outline, because what works for one person might not work for another person. Because if I tried to do one specific thing and I grew a following because of it, but let's say like Kylie tried to do the same thing, it might not work for her, because it might not work for everybody. And that's what makes social media so difficult to maneuver, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. And with this expertise, they come up with specific techniques, and these specific techniques aren't going to be the same for everyone. Obviously, I've said that. But these techniques will make their posts more searchable or discoverable and get them more traction. So one of the participants, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her name, but her name is Afi. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. She's an illustrator, and she said that her work is very visual, colorful, and bold. And she said that she noticed it's better for the quick scrollers on social media. So instead of people like, there's different kinds of people that go on social media. Some people want longer form content, but a lot of us want short form content. So they'll see that it's quick content, so they see it and then they scroll by it. But that's how she noticed she gets more traction with it. And so that's an example of how these artists have to figure out their techniques. Like some of them, she does like time-lapse videos, and the best way she found to record her videos is by mounting a camera on her head. I don't know what that's like, but I don't want to experience that. So, but that's one example. So they're required to find new ways to make good content. But some of the techniques that they use can be targeted by the algorithm in a negative way. For example, one of the participants, her name was Lucia. She said her business account was deleted out of nowhere due to a sudden change in the platform's rules, which the platform they based off of was Instagram. And it seems like the rules that change, they're not always telling us that these rules are changing. They just change them, and then all of a sudden your account gets deleted and there's no way to get it back. I believe she said that she even reached out to like Instagram support and they wouldn't let her get her account back, and they weren't helpful for that. So their techniques are good, but they can also lead to the bad, because you don't want to be on the bad side of a platform, because they might not let you back on it depending on, not saying you did anything wrong or inappropriate, but whatever technique you were using before, the algorithm didn't like, and so it stopped pushing your content, or it just deleted you off the platform altogether. And then the third thing I have is authenticity, which we've talked about in class. It has the influencers and artists create a convincing emotional presence. So the bad thing about authenticity is, or not the bad thing, but authenticity is very powerful because the viewers want something they can connect with whenever they're viewing artists or influencers, but it's constantly being questioned. For example, with artists specifically, they could post art, but if they don't post their process, our people might be questioning, is this their actual art or is this AI generated? Because AI has become so powerful and has become bigger now. And so it's getting harder to be able to tell if AI generated art is real or not. So that brings me to the question of, if an artist, I want to ask everybody, if an artist or an influencer doesn't post their process of, or document the process of them creating their work or their content, does that mean that they aren't authentic? Personally, I don't need to see I don't believe everything I see on the internet, so I don't really, need to see if they're being authentic or not. But like some people I've been following for a long time, if their content changed out of nowhere or they can act one way online, but then you see a couple weeks later down the road that they're being canceled for acting a completely different way, I would be a little upset. But I just wanted to see if what everyone's thoughts were about, if an influencer or artist doesn't document their process, does that mean that they aren't authentic? Does anyone have anything they want to put in?
Well, I'll say I really like the influencer Alex Earl because she's very open about her skin. Like how she's like, I use a beauty filter, or I put this kind of makeup on, or I do lighting that makes sure that like you can't see my acne. But then she'll like show videos of kind of like behind the scenes and be like, this is what like natural skin looks like. Or like on a red carpet, she's like, my skin still looks like this. And like, as someone who struggled with acne and had to go on Accutane, like that was really like a shock to me, because I had never seen an influencer be so open about something that is such like a deep insecurity. So I feel like for me, that made her feel more authentic because it was something that I could connect to. So I was like, it kind of made me like her a lot more. And I feel like you don't have to document that, but it definitely made me feel like she was more authentic because she was being open and honest about something that people like to hide, like something that I definitely hid as well.
Yeah, like, I don't know if y'all know her, but she's an influencer. Her name's Emily Kaiser. I did one of my social media on her, and I personally love her. Like, my future, that's literally what I want. I'm like, how, like, off of just one person off of, social media, but she shows her family a lot, like, her pregnancy and like how her husband is, how her child is, and it's just like she's trusting the internet like with her family, if that makes sense. And I think that can also count as like authentic, because like it's like how her family is and what they do throughout the day, especially since like her family can get backlash like on social media. But I just wanted to throw that in because I really like her and I feel like she is very authentic in her work.
We have a bunch of comments coming up. Jerry says no, because they don't have to document everything. But I do feel like some of their audiences expect that they should. But we have talked a lot about this idea of like imperfections leads to this, quote unquote, calibrated authenticity. Sunny says, yeah, it definitely adds trust, but they shouldn't have to. Remember when we talked about the importance of things like those buzzwords of credibility, trust, expertise being kind of entwined in this process. Sorry, my thing is moving. It's really hard when it moves up. Thank you for commenting, though. That's a good problem to have. I feel it adds trust, but it's how they present themselves online. And we've talked a lot about how authenticity is so calibrated. So I think we're all really aware of that at this point. I don't think influencers need to document their process to be authentic. They just need to be authentic in what they're sharing. And that comes back down to that question of, if you remember those 4 tenets of influence that we spoke about on Monday, that idea of like, do you have expertise? Are you perceived as an expert? And sort of that murky water that's starting to emerge between those two. Anyone want to speak on this one?
I mean, I agree that influencers and artists, they shouldn't have to document every second of their day just so people can be like, oh, this is actually them. This is real. I mean, they're already, depending on, what kind of content they're sharing with us, they're already deciding to share something so personal about themselves online. So I feel like that is enough authenticity. But, you have some people, I can't think of one really good example right now, but some people will present themselves as a loving and kind and a caring person online. But then, like I said, a few weeks down the road, someone they went to school with has proof of them being this terrible person and post about it, and you learn something completely different about them. Like, for example, recently, there's the show called Practical Jokers. One of them, he left the show. He does his own solo act now, but now he's being accused, trigger warning, because this is a deep topic, but he's being accused of sexually assaulting someone. And so there's people that are on the fence about, like, is this real? Do I believe, whoever came up about it, or do I believe him? Like, he's been someone's favorite person for so long. And now that this kind of information is coming out, it's kind of hard to be like, there's no way he would do that. Or did he actually do that? So like, it comes up with questions about, is this how he acted all the time? Or, what kind of person is he really? That's about a good example that I could come up with right now. But I agree that influencers and artists don't need to share every single thing of their life with us, because that can get tiring.
Kind of going off of the like Joe thing, I think it's really hard for people who watch or like get really involved in influencer lives, kind of like how we talked about parasocial relationships. Like, a lot of people have really deep parasocial relationships with these influencers, and when they find out something so terrible like that, or even like that they were racist in the past, or they bullied someone in the past, like, it's really hard for them to kind of break that relationship off in their head. Like, a lot of people are still like, oh, I don't know if I can stop watching Joe Gatto. I think that's how you say his last name. Like, people are like, I've loved him for so long and I can't stop watching him, or they can't believe that that's something that he did. And I think that speaks a lot to how deep people get in these parasocial relationships with people.
That was such an interesting insight, Kylie, and I hadn't considered it from that perspective before. But I think it's the why to some of those conversations we were having about, when someone has these sort of like archaeological digs in their past content, and that resurfaces and it creates this discursive crisis, because they posted racist or misogynistic or xenophobic content at some point. But what we're seeing is oftentimes that person doesn't actually receive that much backlash. And I think that what you're pointing to is a very possible connection point of, people have already built those deep relationships. They already have that sense of like connection. And so it just makes it easier. I did bring Angie up to the stage because I'm hoping you might want to jump into this.
I just went through like so many emotions right now. I was off screen, but like I actually endured what you guys were describing. You were talking about Practical Jokers. I was like, wait, what? what? I didn't know about this. And then I was like, and you just said Impractical Joker. So I wasn't very sure who you were referring to. And then you said Joe Gatto, and I was like, no, because he was my favorite. And I was like, what?
That's like how everyone's reacting right now. They're like, I can't believe this is happening. Yeah.
I'm gonna go in a spiral after this. Wow.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
Good morning, guys. Wow, I'm awake.
Good morning. Welcome to the show, Angie. We're sorry for breaking your heart.
Didn't mean for it to get so dark so fast, but that was like a good example that I could come up with really quick, because that's like
the
what's
trigger
all
warning
over my
was needed
feed right now. That's why I was about to say it, and I was like, no, maybe I need to say trigger warning. So
wow. Okay, well, actually, this actually goes into a good question for me, because you mentioned earlier where like someone can present themselves as like really kind, really nice, really loving, and then someone will release like a video of them being horrible in high school, right? Or like in the past. And then actually, I'm not even going to bring Joe Gatto back. Let's just stick with that one example. So like, does it, I don't know, obviously it matters, right? Because that's something that they had to I guess, work through or hopefully like overcome. But if that was something that they did in the past, do you think that should have as much weight as to how they perform in the future? If someone, you know, releases a video of them in high school, but they're still making videos now as an adult, do you think that should impact how they continue in their, I guess, videos that they create?
I believe people can change. So I don't think, you know, it's something that came out about them I don't know how many years ago about them saying something insensitive or, you know, wrong. I don't think that should lay out that this is how they act in real life. But it kind of gives an insight of to who this person was before. And like I said, depending on what kind of content that they are sharing, like they could say they stand for a list of things, but then there could be something that comes out about them saying that they're actively not supporting these things. Like they say they support it, but the actions they're taking behind the scenes aren't proving that. So something that came out about them from high school, I don't think should lay out what kind of person they are, but it does give an idea of to what kind of person they used to be, and that could still be lingering on to how they are today. That's how I feel about it.
So with the whole like Joe thing, was it back then? Were y'all saying that it was back then, or it just recently happened? Like
I'm pretty sure like it just recently happened, like or the
There's
girl
actually
that
just, like,
it happened
comedy
to
shows recent.
or like the girl that came out about it just came out about it, but it might have happened like a year or two ago. I'm not quite sure, but it's still fairly recent, like, and it's still shocking that happened, you know.
So with that, it's like if he knew he was getting very popular, he was on a TV show, everything like that. And personally, if I were to become an influencer, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like everything from my past is probably going to be brought up because of one of my ops. So you can't expect, you know, for everything to like go away. It's going to come up, you know, like someone will, you know, prey on your downfall. Like, I'm sorry, but someone will, especially people who don't like you, like, or they will make up lies or whatever. But since, whoops, my light. But since, you know, he knew he was like a public figure and everything like that, he should have known that it was going to come if it was true. So you can't really like, I mean, it's just like how it goes. That's how social media is. Like your deep past is going to, I feel like, be brought up from everyone that you know from the past. So just like prepare for it if you want to become like influencer, I guess, because I feel like every influencer I know has had to talk about their past in a way and like go on social media and talk about their past and be like, I'm sorry for this, but I promise like I changed, like blah, blah, blah. Like they go on about it or they address it. And so, yeah.
Savannah, I saw everyone kind of smirking and laughing, and I was laughing to myself and thinking that's such a sensible, that's such a logical response. It's like you have an internet history, go and look at it and clean it up. Not even if you want to be an influencer, just go and do that for goodness sakes. But so many of them get into hot water repeatedly over and over and over again. It's like they don't watch the news and see that this happens to their friend, that this is constantly this archaeological dig on their backgrounds for the purpose of creating sort of a crisis towards them. And this is reputation management 101. Like, you should go look at what people can see when they look online to find you. Not even if you're an influencer. Like, just all of you should go and do a background search on yourself. And it's like, should I delete that Twitter? Probably. So just, in terms of thinking about these sort of digital traces, I think we absolutely have a responsibility to go back. I just want to kind of start wrapping this conversation up, but influencer creep, very well outlined by Whitney. Again, it comes back to this main argument of you don't have to be an influencer, but to exist in these sort of infrastructural environments, what we are often seeing, including with artists and musicians and even people who have nothing to do or promote, we're seeing them fall into these influencer strategies, and they're threefold. One, and jump in, Whitney, if I do it wrong, but like one is like self-branding strategies, right? Like the self-presentation that we've been speaking about so much in class. Number two, they use the word optimization, but really what I want you to think in your minds is like algorithmic optimization. We've been talking a lot about how do people use algorithms for invisibility or visibility. And this is part of that strategic plan, whether you're an influencer or not, to use the algorithms to amplify or minimize your content to either defer detection or to attract attention to particular audiences. And then third, authenticity, which we've spoken about at length in class. So I'm not going to go deeper into that. Whitney, any final comments before we start moving the show to the next person?
No, I feel like all the conversation we had was really good examples, and it brought up just about authenticity. Like, if just because they're not posting everything that they're doing in their day doesn't mean they can't be authentic. But the reason I wanted to end on authenticity is because Lizetha and Kylie, what they're going to be talking about next is basically like, different like family influencers and how their main source of like content is their kids and like what kind of issues are around that. So that's why I wanted to end on authenticity, because how they're acting online isn't necessarily how they're acting behind the scenes. So with that, I'll give it over to Lizetha so she can start that conversation.
Yeah, so I'm doing the second reading, which is Ambassadors of Ideology, Conceptualization and Computational Investigation of Far-Right Influencers and Their Networking Structures and Communication Practices. That is the whole title, very long title. This reading was very interesting, especially because Kylie's going to talk about how these families on TikTok are leaving California because they say that they don't align with the political ideas that reside in California, and they're moving out so that they can, they're going to Tennessee, right? And because they politically align more there, but we don't really know if that's the truth because of their law, which Kylie will kind of talk more about. But I just kind of wanted to talk about how like these far-right influencers kind of build their status on like TikTok and stuff. And so in the article, we think of influencers, or we used to think of influencers as like people that were in beauty and fashion and like their lifestyles. And it was like, you would see what these people were doing. But now influencers, they still have the lifestyle, which is like showing what they do in their daily lives and kind of like going about how they do their things. But now they're starting to take more of a political stance, and they build their audiences through that. And like one of the quotes here, it says, interpersonal communication stronger impacts attitudes and behavior than mass communication. So a lot of these people are finding connections through their media rather than trying to like go out and talk to these people. They find their trust in their influencers that they decide to follow and align with. And the audience kind of picks their influencers that they decide to follow through like experience, their communication skills, their social status, political interest. And if these influencers have what the audience wants and aligns with, it prompts them to be an opinion leader, and they promote persuasion. So Kylie will kind of talk about like how not just like one family is doing it, but multiple families have been moving out because of like their same beliefs, and like they all kind of have like the same followers. Um, but the far right influencers, they build this parasocial relationship, which it's like common with all of these influencers. And basically, just a quick little meaning of what parasocial relationships are. It's a one-sided relationship between the audience and the influencer. So the audience has this trust in the influencer and they know that they're there, but vice versa, the influencer is just making videos to put them out. They're not making a video specifically for me or for you. They're just making a general video. Um and yeah, it that's what like makes it replaces a real life relationship. That's something that kind of shocked me because um I mean, we see people every day. Like why can't why is it so normal to have a real life relationship through media rather than having like that personal connection in person? Um and some of the like characteristics through these like parasocial relationships is the frequency of media. There's three. So one is how frequent they are on media. The second one is how they're doing it. So whether it's like going through live or whether like um indirect, so they're making videos and we watch them on our own time or whenever they come up on our feed. And the third one is the audience motivation to interact with the figure. So how is like the influencer reaching out to their audience in that connection? And then I kind of want to pass the table over to Kylie to kind of give you more of that example, and then we'll kind of go back and forth on our topics.
Yeah, so to kind of connect like my newsworthy article with this article, I'm going to talk about a law that California just put into place. Um, so in early January of this year, California passed a law that expanded protection for child influencers. It requires parents who include their children in at least 30% of their content to set aside 65% of their child's gross income into a trust account that they will be able to gain access to when they're 18. So this was announced earlier in 2024, before it was actually passed. But like it is kind of a big deal. It kind of reflects a different act in California that kind of protects child actors. But with the rise of how insane like influencers have become, they had to protect children who are on the internet. So small things that go along with it. Children can sue their parents if they fail to comply to this in California. And I think it also is in Illinois and one other state as well. But this impacts families that depend on their child's earnings, but it's necessary to protect minors on the internet. Right after this was announced in, I think, late 2024, so September maybe, 3 different families announced their move to Tennessee, like literally all at once. It was the LeBrant family, the Cicely Bachman, she's like, she doesn't do a family channel, but all 4 of her kids are included in her content. And then Brittany Xavier, she has 2 young kids, but all 3 of these families were like, we're going to Nashville or Tennessee. So yeah, they all were called out for it pretty immediately, kind of by people on the internet being like, this is such fishy timing because it's very clear you just don't want to pay your kids. Because, I mean, I forgot to say this, but the LeBrant family has 5 kids, and all of them are included in the content, especially Everly. She's like the oldest. But like these people literally, like, they make their kids the face of their TikToks. And so their kids are making the majority of the money for them. And it was just like really fishy that they moved to somewhere that didn't require them to pay their kids or set aside a trust. And all 3 of them came out with their reasoning behind moving was because they lean more right politically and think that a southern state like Tennessee is going to align with their views better. Like even Sherry LeBrant, I think is Cole's mom, said Tennessee aligns more with their conservative values compared to California. And then Brittany Xavier also, she said she like came out and was like, I voted for Trump. That's where I want to be. Like our family wants to farm. And so we want to go to Tennessee. But yeah, so all of these people immediately were like, no, it's not because I don't want to pay my kids. It's because we're far right leaning. And so with that, I think a lot more people who show their far right values like them they're getting support for it. Like there's a small community that's like canceling them, but a lot of people are like, thank you for showing your far right views. Thank you for like sticking up for what you believe in. And now a lot more people are following suit like with them. So I think now that these people are getting support for doing what they want and not like coming out and being like, we lean more right. This is not where we want to be. California's not where we want to be. A lot of the far right community are like coming out and saying that that's what they are. I wrote down that since 2020, Tennessee has been exploding as an influencer hub. There's a real network and ecosystem there for more conservative influencers. The cost of living is incredibly cheap and all sorts of influencers are moving there. So my question for everyone is, do you think these family vloggers moved to avoid the new California law, or do you think it's really because of their conservative views?
So I kind of want to take it back to the article. Kylie talked about how like these 3 families, and then how the community was like, thank you for bringing out that far right view in their media. In the reading, they conducted a study off of like these far right media platforms and like these influencers. And so I have a couple of numbers here from that study. So in total, 4,615 channels forwarded over just like 3 million posts, with 20 originating from far right influencers. So it's just the same idea being pushed out to these numerous amount of people in that community. So the more that these posts are being pushed out, the more recognition it gets. The algorithm will start to push it out if the algorithm notices like certain things that like aligns with what you're seeing, or like if you're not seeing, because I know hate watching is a big thing especially with political stands. And so if we're hate watching a lot of far right influencers and like their actions, and we're watching all of their content and what they're going about, like their story, then that's continuously just pushing out and telling the algorithm, hey, this is something that we need to watch. So yeah, I think they're just building their platform with their community, and then the community that hate watches, because hate watching is something that we're not supposed to do, but we love doing it. I've seen it. I know a lot of people, they like to see it like, oh, look what he's saying. I can't believe he's saying this. And yeah, and I've also noticed that, and even in the document, it says that their major platforms like Facebook and YouTube have started to delete far right content, and it forces these people to switch. So I think this is also like a physical switch, where it's like they can't reside in California. They don't feel like they have to be there. They have to physically move somewhere else instead of just like moving media platforms.
Yeah, and another thing I forgot to mention, Brittany Xavier has an 18-year-old kid who's finishing high school right now, and she still moved to Nashville. So she left she technically is 18, but she's still in high school. And so the pace at which she moved I don't know if she moved to Nashville, I think she just moved to Tennessee, is very fishy. Like it doesn't really make sense to leave your high school age child alone in California because you want to move for political reasons. But I was going to say, you were right about the hate watching. It's rage bait. Like they say things that they know people are going to have intense reactions to because the people who are having intense reactions are commenting, and it boosts the post. So like, I mean, I'm even a victim of that. Like, I don't know if y'all know who Nick Fuentes is. He says insane things that make you like repost it on your story just to be like, this is insane. And it works. It boosts their posts, and then they find that community of people who agree with them.
I want to take a moment to just recognize all of the great comments that are showing up here from the class. They do not want to pay for their kids for the work the kids do. I think it's to avoid paying for their kids. If it was their values, they wouldn't be moving at all at this suspicious of a time. They would have already moved, right? Like, is I think the inference there. It could be a mix of both, honestly, perhaps. I agree that it can be a mix of both. I think we would never know the real reasons. It's definitely a coincidence moment, but that's harder to depict. Evan says, I think the majority of the facts they do not want to pay for their children or content, but they use the reasoning of political values to cover up these reasons. I think is so, such mixed opinions here, but like everyone thinks it's definitely an interesting time. But what I do think is really interesting about this and worth our attention in having a conversation about is what protections do children deserve? And this is in culture industries at large. So I remember when I was growing up hearing these horror stories of musicians or actors who were all children who their parents got all of their money. They ended up growing up, they were these super famous child actors. Many of them ended up in drug addiction or other really unfortunate situations. And their parents kept all their money. So I do think that this trend of like child labor in entertainment industries is an ongoing one. It's not something that just like blew up with social media. But what protections do these children, what protections should be in place for these children? What do you think? First the group, and then maybe Angie can jump in after.
Well, we're already seeing like negative effects with like the 8 Passengers family. I don't know. I don't really know a lot about them, but I do know that the mom and someone who was helping run the channel are literally sitting in jail right now because of the way they treated their kids. The kids were like the main face of the channel, but like behind the scenes were being like physically, emotionally, mentally abused by their mom. So I think it's really important to protect kids on the internet, especially, I mean, from the people watching them, because you never know who's weird, who's trying to figure out where you live or anything like that, but also from the parents. I mean, the 8 Passengers whole thing is literally shown that you need to protect from the internet, but you also have to protect from money hungry, greedy parents who just want to put their kids out just to get money. So I do think California is on the right track to protect these kids, but it needs to, I feel like it needs to be like a whole internet thing.
Before we continue, I just want to say a couple of things, and then I do really want to hear what the rest of your team thinks. I've been following these family of influencers, like huge families where they have 8 kids, 5 kids, like just kids. And they seem to be making a livelihood out of monetizing their family life. But we also see this happening with smaller groups where there's clearly an adult behind the scene who's promoting a child or a couple children. And we often see this with like children who are in gymnastics or children who are in dance. And if you Google this, the New York Times put out this article, the men who use Instagram to groom child influencers. And so what the study behind that influenced that article really shows is that these parents are using Instagram as a way to monetize children's content to help, sometimes even to pay for their dance lessons or their special lessons. Like sometimes it isn't even nefarious. It's like we're genuinely using this to support their interest. But what's happening is the way the infrastructure works on Instagram is it is going to promote certain comments and certain type of content to the people who want to see that kind of content. And unfortunately, sometimes the people who want to see content of young girls, like children girls, is not really the right audience for them. So there's multiple layers of needing protection here. And so I'm hoping to open this up so that you can have maybe even a more fulsome conversation than just these family influencers. So I'm curious what people think across the board. Obviously, this is a really distressing and really disgusting example, but it goes back to that, like, these platforms are not apolitical actors, right? Like, they know what they're doing. They are monetizing children in many cases. And oftentimes this is what is being preferenced by the algorithm for visibility, but maybe not to the right audience. What does your team think about, anything we've discussed so far?
I don't think using I'm trying to figure out the right word, but I don't think them putting their children in videos is necessarily a bad thing. Like, they want to obviously document what's going on in their life. So of course, if they have a kid or 2 or 3, they're going to show up in the content, but it's gotten to a point where majority of their content is just their children. And it seems like they're kind of like exploiting their children. So like, they'll tell their kids to say certain things or do certain things where it's like, people like us, like our entire group, we all grown up with social media. So it's like, we've grown up with it. And so now that we're getting to the point where we're the parents and we have kids, it's kind of like they're exploiting their children in a certain kind of way. So like, for example, one person I can think of right now, there's a girl, her name is Piper Raquel. Her mom manages her social media, and there's actually going to be like a documentary coming out pretty soon about how her mom was exploiting a bunch of kids because like her daughter had a bunch of friends, I assume, or they became friends. They had like I think a YouTube channel altogether. It was all of these kids that had a YouTube channel, and the mom was running it, but apparently there was things happening behind the scenes where she was straight up exploiting them and making them do certain things that, it's weird now to see that they were doing these things. It's kind of like, why are they doing these things at this age? They wouldn't even think about doing it. So like I said, I don't think showing kids in your content is necessarily bad, but there's definitely certain things that these people are doing to exploit them, and they're just trying to grab money, keep it, and then they don't want to spend it on anybody. And because of the the whole LeBrant family thing, I find that interesting that Tennessee is like where their beliefs most align with, when I'm pretty sure they've been living in California for like a long time. So it's just very random that they're like, oh, well, we want to move somewhere that aligns with our beliefs, but they've been living there for, I don't know how long, but a long time. So I don't know. That's my thought on it.
It's almost like the California law is the belief that they don't align with. So one of the things that I actually wanted to add on to Whitney really quick is that I completely agree. Like, it's not a secret that you have kids. It's okay if they're in your content occasionally. Like, if you're the focus and then, like a kid pops in the back, that's fine. What's the phrase? It's like private but not secret. And so I think in that terms, I think a good way to kind of protect children that I've seen some people do is like blur their faces. If there's like a child in the background or something like that, I really appreciate it when someone blurs their kid's face. And I think the comments do too. Every time I read the comments of like a video like that, it's like, good job for protecting your kid. Good job for blurring her face. So I think maybe that's just one way to maybe protect your child.
But sorry, Savannah, I don't mean to cut you off. But even then, like
dinner with her, like her new kid, I think she was blurring her face and everything. And I was like, wow, that's so nice, because she is such a huge person that her kid is out there. And she makes a lot of money now, and using her kid for that stuff, I don't think she would, but it's still very respectable that she did that because who she is. But yeah, sorry, you can go in.
No, you're good. I think that's a good example. But what I was going to say is I follow one mom, I can't remember her name right now, but she has 2 daughters, and she used to post content like her and her daughters together, but she used to show her daughters' faces. Now she blurs her daughters' faces out because, you never know, there's weird people everywhere. But what I've noticed is there's a mix of comments of people saying, "Oh, good job for blurring their faces out. Like you're not, basically you're not exploiting them. Great job. That's the bare minimum." But there's some comments that are like, sorry, I mean it's true, but there are some comments that are like, back to the parasocial relationship. They're like, "Well, I miss seeing so and so's face. I want to see what they look like now." And it's like, I think that's kind of weird. But it's good on the parent because they want to show their life, but they don't want to exploit their children. So I feel like by blurring their faces, that's something good to protect their kids and something that a lot of people should maybe consider. But yeah.
I definitely agree with that. There was I'm trying to remember her name. I think she got canceled. She was like a mommy influencer. And I followed her because I don't remember her name. I'm so sorry. But I remember I was scrolling through TikTok and there was a video of her daughter in the pool and she was just like wearing like a diaper. And I was like really like turned off by all of that immediately. I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. I don't want to watch this mom anymore if she's going to post something like that. Like, what people on the internet are, like what they're thinking. You have to be really vigilant about what kind of content you post, especially of your children. And to post your daughter like in a pool or like bath time or anything like that, like I think that is way too far. And it just goes to show that people really, they know what they're doing. And I do not like that.
It also speaks to this like public versus private, right? Like if you want to do that, have that in your private account, just don't show it to the public world. Like you can have multiple accounts on Instagram. Many of us do, and we do so very intentionally for these different purposes. So I think that's good. Isabella says there's this terrible example here, and I think we all have seen very terrible examples at different points. But I just want to start us moving into the wrap up, if possible.
Okay, so I mean, overall, we learned multiple things. We got deep and we laughed. So many things, but I really enjoyed this and this was super fun. And I hope that everyone learned something new, or especially you, Angie, you learned something very new and great. But learned something new and, this is pretty much all that we have for y'all today. Yeah, like, just, I don't know, like,
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Day, but yeah.
Yeah, you guys
Thank
did a
you
great
so
job.
much.
My
Oh,
world
sorry.
was rocked today.
Yeah, mine too. I learned that like Monday whenever Whitney told or Kylie told, I don't remember who said it, but I was like, what? And whenever I went home, I just went straight to looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh. But
Yeah, I have plans for the rest of the day, and I wanted to say that I really liked not just this one, but like all the examples that you guys gave. It was very, very informative. Like, and then I liked, relating like, oh yeah, I did hear about those families, and then it just got me thinking about other families. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen like those RV videos, like families in an RV. People are always commenting on the children, like, how could you like subject your child to that? Or like sometimes they're just commenting on, what they're sleeping in or something like that. But yeah, it was very informative, very relevant to today for sure, with everything that you see in social media. So I think that this was a lot of lessons in this live stream for people to take home.
100%. Very informative, very fun. I laughed quite a few times. We had a good time, even though we maybe destroyed Angie's vision of someone, but I think that's okay. Thank you for such a great job. Let's give this team a huge round of applause in the comments on the show here. We're really, really proud of you. We're grateful that we got to experience this show with you. I'm glad you had fun. I always have fun during these shows. It's my favorite part of the semester. And you definitely brought a lot of creativity to it and brought it up in really interesting ways. So thank you for that. In terms of final announcements, we are kind of at the end of our week, but you do have your social media labs due on Sunday. It's related to influencer culture. Surprise, surprise. Take a look at that. Feel free to message me in the WhatsApp chat if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great day, and I will see you next week. Bye, everyone. Great job, Team 2.